Good morning, afternoon, evening. I always have to say that because I don't know where you are, and because the world is uncompromisingly round, we're in different time zones. And I don't know when you're watching this because it becomes a podcast, so you might be watching it at your convenience. So, good morning, afternoon, evening. There you go. It covers all the possibilities. And it's welcome to Freethought Hour, our chat show co-hosted by the lovely Tercia in South Africa. How the devil are you, Tercia?
Well, I've never been called lovely by anybody before, so that's...
I can't believe it. Oh, your bulb is broken or something. No. Oh, what a way to start. Anyway, let me introduce Khaled, our guest. Khaled, how the devil are you?
Hi, John. I'm very well, thank you. All the
Good.
better for seeing you and Tercia.
And she's stopped being frozen, so whatever happened has unhappened. Good. So, Tercia, meet Khaled. He's a new acquaintance of mine, although he actually came to an event that I staged, didn't you, Khaled?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, do you want to say a bit about that?
Sure. Richard Dawkins was one of my idols, and I've read some of his books, and it was one of my dreams to attend a live show for him. I've watched almost all the shows that I came across on YouTube. I really like him, so I saw the event advertised, and I booked a ticket, and I went. That was in Birmingham, and there was Mariam Namazi and Lawrence Krauss, and some other big
A.C.
thinkers.
Grayling. Yeah,
Yeah.
Professor A.C. Grayling, the philosopher. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, and John, of course. So yeah, it was a terrific evening. I've taken a selfie with Richard Dawkins, so I will. That will always be my high.
Did you have some food at the end?
I didn't know.
No? Oh, that was an option that not everybody took up, but it meant that you could sit and have a meal with your stars.
Yeah, I was close enough. I actually sat on the first row. I was right in front of him.
Oh,
So,
right. Okay.
yeah, I couldn't have enough of Richard Dawkins. He's yeah, I like him a lot.
Well, hopefully he'll still be available to join up with some of our future events because we've got some more planned. Not for this year, unfortunately. We did have one planned for December, but we couldn't get the ducks in a row. When you're organizing events like this, it's a case of merging together several different calendars, and they're all busy people. And if they don't have availability, you can't do the event. So that proposed December event has been postponed to 2024. But we will definitely be doing certainly a repeat of the London event that we held in the Tabernacle in Notting Hill sometime in June. And we'll also be repeating the Midlands Arts Centre event, the one you attended, again sometime in September 2024. So, yeah, I'm glad you came. We contacted as a result of that. Yeah. And so we're kindred spirits, it turns out.
That's right.
Now you've got a very interesting story to tell, your life story. Unlike mine, my life story is boring. I was born, my parents weren't religious. I didn't get taken to church except for weddings, and I didn't meet any form of religion until it was foisted on me at school in assembly. It never took, so I was born an atheist and I've stayed that way. Not a very exciting story. So tell us about yours. What's your life been like?
Sure. Yeah, it's very difficult to start with because I'm an ex-Muslim, so I was born a Muslim, and it's as you know, Islam is fundamentally different to Christianity.
Yeah.
Islam is more of a way of life, and it controls everything, every aspect of your life without you even realizing, because you are subject to indoctrination since you are very young,
Yes.
since a very young age.
And it treats women differently from men, much more so than in Christianity.
Yeah, correct. So I grew up a practicing Muslim, and I went to, when I was in my secondary school, I actually radicalized myself. I radicalized myself. I'm I'm sure most ex-Muslims have gone through the same experience.
Can I pin you down a minute? Were you doing this in Egypt, or were
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, in
You
Egypt.
were, right. Mm. So you had the early years of your life in Egypt.
That's right. Yeah.
During which you got more Muslim, you got more Islamic.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Wow.
You kind of, if you are, if you have a mind like mine, I don't, I don't know gray. I don't know black. I don't know gray areas. I know black and white. So I wanted to know more about my religion to be able to practice it well, to practice it in
Yeah.
the right way. So I started reading, and through these readings, I started to be a devout Muslim. I just wanted to be a righteous person. I didn't want to. I didn't want to be on in the middle. I wanted to be 100% into my
Yeah.
religion.
Mm.
And that carried on until I went to university.
Mm-hmm.
And at university, I got chatted to someone through a friend, and
Yeah.
me and that person became really good friends through music, because I really like music and I used to sing and play music, and that guy was the same. And he we were singing one day. I was in the background because I hadn't learned music yet by that time. So I
So,
was
what were you doing at university? What subjects?
accountancy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was in 1990. So my first year at uni was 1990 until 1994. And I think it's around 1991 or 1992 that event took place when I met that guy.
Yeah.
He was maybe 5 years older than me, and we were singing one night, and uh, I was in the background, and he was his song. He created the song himself. He's a
All right.
singer songwriter as well,
Mm-hmm.
and the the lyrics were saying something like "Let's recreate the world," and that's, from my perspective then, that's haram. That's not a good thing
Yes.
to say, because
Yes.
you're very literal when you're a Muslim. You have to be careful with what you say and how you walk, everything.
Yes.
So after the event has finished, I said, that's not very nice song. I wouldn't want to sing something like that. So he said, let me speak to you about that in another time. And we sat one night.
Mm-hmm.
We started walking. We walked about 10 kilometers, and he told me that he was an atheist, and it was very scary. Even though I was these days, we didn't have internet, we didn't have social media. We were just that we don't have anything to.
Yeah.
And all the books I was reading were all only religious books.
Yes.
I read a lot of story, a lot of novels, and some sciencey books, but nothing comes close to atheism at all. We can't. We don't have this in Egypt either.
Oh.
So,
That's an interesting thing. Do you have libraries in Islamic societies, but they're restricted?
Yeah,
They
some books are not produced anyway. You can
Yes.
buy, if you know of a book that is not permitted, you can get it somehow. But I didn't have the means.
Yeah.
Plus, I was just buying used books. I would there was lots of guys sell used books in the streets, and I'll just go and buy
Yes.
cheap books, whatever I can find that would
Yes.
enrich my experience.
Yes.
Lots of it was religious books, though Islamic books. So that was a shock. I'd never seen an atheist person in my life, and it really scared me. The word atheist then to me was
Yes.
equal to Satan or devil or something.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
I
You
thought,
expected horns.
yeah, I thought he probably was not human. He probably was some sort
Yes.
of a devil.
Yes.
And I stopped talking to him, and I started going back to religions just to reassure
Oh,
myself, reading more stuff like that.
right.
And that carried on maybe about 5 years until the Coptics Egyptians. There was a priest, very famous priest, who dug into the books, the Islamic books, a lot, and they said then internet had started to become a thing,
Yeah.
and they were meeting on a platform called Pal Talk. So I started listening to these people, and then I found that what they say makes sense. And again, it was scary. I was very defensive in the beginning. That's why I am very compassionate with Muslims. I don't like, I'm on Facebook groups, and I get the defensive attitude, and I never get upset. I understand, and I say I know I was in your shoes. There's no problem.
Yes.
You can say whatever you want. So I was defensive in the beginning, and then I started reading books. I came to England, and I started asking my dad to send me particular books. So I started reading into history, into the period that between Prophet Muhammad until the establishment of the second state. Second state was called Abbasi state. So this period was very important, and a lot of events happened. And then I started reading into what happened when the Arabs came and started invading North Africa, because the story that we were told is very different to the story that the historians, the neutral historians, tell. You hear that the Egyptians were under persecution from the Roman Empire, and they were horrible. And when Islam came, they were very receptive to it, and they were happy.
Yes.
But when you read the historians,
yes,
that are not idealized, you hear a very different story. You hear that the Egyptians were revolting for maybe 200 years until the Islam settled there, and
yes, by brute force.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Can I just?
Khaled, sorry, I want to ask about that period, because it's a period of history that I know very little about. The religion that the Egyptians adhered to at that time, we're talking what about a year? If this must be sort of in the early Middle Ages.
Yeah, exactly. It's around. So Islam came 635. Around that time. I might be wrong, but it's 600 something, and we're talking about maybe 680 something like that when it went to Egypt. So
so the question I wanted to ask was, were most Egyptians at that time following some sort of traditional religion? How many were there any Christians at that time? There must have been. I mean, I'm sure there were, but I don't know what religion were the majority of Egyptians at that time following. Were they sort of praying to the sun god Ra? It sounds like a funny question, but I really have no idea.
No, the Egyptians left the god of the sun Ra, because we were invaded by the Greek Empire, and then after that the Roman Empire.
Yes, yes.
And when the Roman Empire became a Christian, Christianity was the main.
Yes.
Became the main. Yeah, so that overshadowed Egypt as well. So the main.
That would have been from about 300 onwards, when Constantine
Mm, mm.
adopted it as the state religion.
Yeah.
I want to wind back a bit further, because you talked about 2 periods of Islam, and I like Persia, I know very little about this, so I'd like to find out if you can help. There's what I'm aware of is a story about the Quran, the first Quran being burned or disposed of, and then the Quran having to be reconstructed pretty much from memory. Is there any truth in that?
So yeah, the narrative is that there was people who or the Prophet Muhammad's friends were writing the Quran while it was descending. So
from God.
From God, yeah. So he would memorize it, and then he would tell it to a few of his friends who were literate, because he was illiterate.
Tribes, yeah.
So they wrote the Quran. After he died, the narrative is there were a lot of different versions of the Quran, and some of them were huge, were really big, and people started to fall out, so after Prophet Muhammad, there was Khalifa Abu Bakr, and then Umar, and then Uthman. In the Uthman, so Abu Bakr and Umar, Abu Bakr stayed for 2 years, Umar stayed for about 10 years, 12 years. So after maybe 12 years from the time that Prophet Muhammad died, there was the Khalifa Uthman, who burnt all the versions and kept one.
Yes.
And so the narrative we've been told is that we have that version in Egypt.
Yes.
The Uthman's text, but some historians have actually studied this, and they said that doesn't have anything to do with this, with that period of time. It was actually written at a later age, maybe 200, 300 years after that, because he compared the writing, because the writing is very different. There are few writing styles. Yeah.
So I've interrupted you. I hope I haven't driven you too far away from your personal story, because you were telling you were at university and you met this older person who was an atheist and didn't have horns. To your surprise, he didn't have horns. So would you like to pick up from there?
Sure. If you just allow me to answer Tercia's question.
Sure.
So the Egyptians then were Orthodox Egyptians.
Yeah.
And they were called Coptics, and they are still called Coptics. And even the word Egypt is derived from the word Coptic, Egypt.
It's a type of Christianity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was the main religion, and of course, when Islam goes to invade a country in a campaign, the choice you have as a citizen of that country is, the choices are 3. So you either convert to Islam, keep your religion, and pay the something like a tax called jizya. So you pay the jizya, and you keep your religion, or you convert to Islam. If you don't want to do either, you die, you'll be killed.
That's not much of a choice, that third one.
You've got 2 choices at least.
But I never knew about that thing that you can pay tax. So if you have enough money, you can stay in the faith of your choice. I never knew about that.
So these are the people that are still Christians right now in Egypt. So I've got Christian friends, and they know about me. And I often say that your grandfather was a lot richer than mine, because mine couldn't pay, so he converted. Yours, because we were all the same at some point.
Yes.
And
But
same
no, I was
goes for Morocco and Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Iran. Same goes for everyone. This
All
is
right.
just the system.
North Africa, yeah. Mm.
If it's, in some countries, Islam was popularized by trading. You know, people talk to
Yeah.
each other, but if it was a campaign, then that's the choice you have.
Uh-huh. Mm. Yeah.
So after that, I started talking to my friend again, and of course he became the closest person to me. And now we both share on all. We talk a lot about things, and I started reading, and then I started going to the English texts. Hence, I got to know of Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitching and
Yes.
Lawrence Krauss and all these people. So, and that was my journey.
I missed part of the beginning. I'm sorry about the technical problems I had. How long have you been deconverted now, Khaled?
So about 20 years.
Oh, okay. You're about 10 years ahead of me. I've been a deconverted Christian for about 10, 12 years now. So yeah, that's I want to ask, so sorry if I fall in and if I repeat things that John have asked, forgive me, because we had Momus on, and Momus is on our panel on Sundays as well. And Momus said a number of things that made me think really deeply about Islam. And I was in a conversation with my parents last week, and both of them are elderly and now deconverted from Christianity. But one thing that has remained in their minds is the fear of Islam. And I was always quite skeptical about that fear of Islam wanting to take over the world. But it seems Momus says that we should be afraid of Islam, and that Islam won't allow other thoughts even to be tolerated. Do you have the same opinion, or do you have a different view on whether the West in particular and Christians should have a fear of Islam, and that Islam wants to basically convert the entire world, or perhaps put everybody through that choice of either pay tax, which seems very lucrative, that idea of die, convert, or pay tax, you know. What is your opinion, if you have any, and if you're willing to express it?
So let me just comment about this tax thing. So the reason for the tax, we were told that because the citizens would not be allowed to join the army, because the army has to be just Islamic army, just Muslims. So in order for us as Muslims to defend you while you are in your country, you've got to pay the tax. So that's the reason for the tax from the Islamic point of view. Okay. In terms of your question, we have to differentiate between it's a whole spectrum. Muslims are not all the same. It's a whole spectrum. So you've got the moderate Muslim, what they call the moderate Muslim, which is a Muslim who were brought up in the religion, and he did not read enough. He did not expose himself to the old texts that were written, because if you are a Muslim and you have a family and you go to school and then you go to university and then you go to work, you don't have time really to. You just get the religion from the imam, from the priest, or the equivalent to priest. So you go to the mosque and you ask the imam whatever you want, and the television is pretty much all Islamic. There are lots of imams that in the television will tell you what you need to know, and these people cherry pick from what they have learned. So they learn in a big Islamic university, and they learn everything, and then they cherry pick what should be told to the public. But if you read these books, you will see something could be very difficult to comprehend as a moderate Muslim. So moderate Muslims do not really have agenda. They just like the religion. They like their God. They think they are righteous people. They don't have any ambitions. And then you have the extreme Muslims who have a political agenda.
Yeah.
And that political agenda is coming from the texts. I can't.
Yes.
I can't attack. I can't. It is really difficult. I can't attack these people because I was once in their shoes. I understand their ideology, and you really don't have where to go. You don't have movement. God is telling you this is the way the Islamic life should be. You should be striving to spread God's word, God's word in the whole world, exactly like what a Christian does when they preach, or a Jehovah's Witnesses. It's pretty much the same. But with Islam,
the big difference, though, as I see it, is that unlike Christianity, to a great extent, Islam has wrapped up government in with religion. So this is what you mean by saying there's nowhere to go, because it's all the whole culture.
What I mean is you've got the text as now not a moderate Muslim. Now we're talking about people who understand the religion well, who read well, who dug enough to understand. You don't have enough movement. You have a text. You become like a robot. If God says that, then this is what you're going to do. And just on the side, there is a bit of a problem with that, because there are few interpretations for everything. So there are lots of opinions in every subject. So it's not even one thing, but you follow one thing. But the big principles are one. That's why you will find that sometimes the Muslim groups that they have groups because it's not one thing, but they all agree about one big principle, which is spreading the God's word, establishing the Islamic state, like the Khilafat as they call it. So this is what I mean by you don't have movement. You can't, if you committed, you really can't not listen to God after you know what He wants from you as a Muslim. That's the difficulty. And the difference between Christianity and Islam is that like Christianity follows Christ, and it didn't actually use force. It didn't use. There was no. Christ didn't head an army and went invading. Where Prophet Muhammad did that, and then his successors did that as well. So as a Christian, you follow what Christ did, and you just preach. As a Muslim, if you are on the extreme side, then you have this agenda. That's what Hamas is doing at the moment. That's where it's coming from. And I can't fault them. And I even though I condemn what these people are doing, but I understand where they're coming from. I understand.
As a former fundamentalist Christian, I'm 100% with you on when you say you can't condemn them because you were there. Because I remember often thinking to myself that the Bible is very clear about the fact that a Christian cannot pull in the same yoke with a non-Christian. And as somebody who is serious about one's faith, it does leave open very little option. One of my intellectual heroes, Matt Dillahunty, often says, while he despises everything that the Westboro Baptist Church stands for, he cannot fault them in how accurately they interpret the Bible. And the trouble with Islam is, I think there's even less space for Muslims who are convinced of the faith to act in a way that is not inclined to being fundamentalist. I think that it must be very difficult to be a moderate Muslim, especially in particular regions of the world. And I think that's why conversations like these are increasingly important, to give space and to create space to talk about what is a moderate Muslim, and to address things like Islamophobia. And I want to go, when I think about Islamophobia, people are afraid of snakes. And while most snakes are not poisonous, and I speak obviously as an African, because we have, my son was just confronted by a snake at work 2 days ago. In fact, a poisonous one, because that's just the nature of where we live. And while most snakes are absolutely harmless, and I would never just invite or just say kill people, and even though I don't like snakes and I don't like touching them, there's a reason for that. And I cannot fault people who are really afraid of snakes and say that the only dead one is a good snake is a dead one, because there are snakes who are extremely harmful and lethal to humans. And I think both those ideas should be acknowledged, that when we talk about Islamophobia, people who have negative ideas and fear Islam have a genuine reason for that fear.
Oh, so in that case, it's not really a phobia then, is it? Because a phobia is a misplaced fear.
Okay. So
unreasonable, unreasonable fear. Yeah. So, but you said some interesting stuff there. I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Hitchens who said that the best Christians, Muslims, whatever, are the fundamentalists, because they are following their doctrine more perfectly.
That's correct. Yeah, they are true to them, to their creed. Let me just address 3 points of what Tertius said. Just a small point, that when you said most, it's difficult to be a moderate Muslim. I think most Muslims are moderate, at least in my part of the world. So the extreme are a small minority, but because they have a very strong belief, they follow that. So that's why we hear about them a lot. The other thing is, you talked about you as a fundamentalist Christian. I talked about myself as an ex-fundamentalist Muslim, and I can speak on behalf of fundamentalist Jewish as well, Jew, because I've been listening to normal Jewish in Israel in the streets, and even though there is very nice people, but because it's very easy to spot the fundamentalists because of their appearance, they have the same problem. They when you ask one of them, do you think you and other people are equal, they will say no, because we are the chosen people of God. I don't think we should have an equal treatment. So this is the problem with all religions. It's not just Islam. Islam is just the only problem with Islam is just it's the force, the use of force, because of the inheritance. I think there are some texts in the Old Testaments are the same, a bit aggressive, a bit hostile. So you will see why these two religions clash, because of the text. And it's very difficult for an ex-Muslim to be on one side, or to hate, because you understand where they're coming from. You understand.
That's the more I learn about these things and the more I have these conversations, the more I become convinced that people who, even fundamentalists who are not inclined to be violent, once religion in so many ways requires it of one. And that just signifies to me that most people are not inclined to being violent. I think just because we are social animals, most of us don't want to do harm. We don't want to have conflict. And there's only one thing that enables us to condone conflict, and that is religion. Whether you're a fundamentalist Jew, a fundamentalist Christian, or a fundamentalist Muslim, or Hindu for that matter, or a Buddhist, it is the moment that one somehow gets oneself through that belief in something supernatural to go against one's human inclination, that one becomes a fundamentalist. And I think we should go do more to emphasize that we need to help people out of that. And the only way to do that is to have conversations and to teach ourselves how to have better conversations, because that really is the only way that we can get the fundamentalists to listen to their true human nature, because I'm not convinced that the majority of people are inclined to being violent. The world would be a much worse place than it is if that were true. I do think that in that respect, I'm very much like the better angels of our nature. Come on, I see his face before. Steven Pinker, who maintains a positive outlook, and that is my experience of life. That most people would rather cooperate than be violent, and that's why I will always speak out against religion, because I don't see any other human idea having the same propensity for violence, not even something like nationalism, which of course in my opinion is rooted in religious belief as well. So yeah, but do you think, I just want to understand whether my idea is right, that I do think that Islam has a greater propensity in the teaching of the faith itself for violence than does even Christianity, because Christianity has the New Testament, which comes and replaces the old one, and even Judaism. I think Judaism has evolved to the point where there's quite a great tolerance for a wide variety of being a Jew without adhering to the scriptures to the same extent that there is in Islam. How am I wrong in thinking that?
So let me first disagree with you, if you allow me, about the ideas of violence. I think there is another drive for violence in the world, which is imperialism, interest, colonization. That's a screaming example, because when you have America, for example, they would go to war for anything, for their interest. In fact, they are backing Israel up at the moment in the Middle East because they have interest. And Joe Biden said it. He said, if Israel wasn't created, we would have created it, because they have interest in the area, because they don't want to lose the Middle East with its resources to Russia or China. So
you've convinced me. You're right. You've convinced me. That was easy.
and this actually is fueled by religion. So the people in the Middle East, this becomes even more pronounced because of the religion, and then they feel like they're not being fairly treated, and they start leaning back on religion, and then they start violence again. So in terms of Islam, again, I see a lot of similarities between Islam and Judaism, not so much between Islam and Christianity. And I think the Crusades were actually a bit off the script for Christianity. But I listen to a lot of religious Jews who talk pretty much the same, tell the same narrative about women, exactly like they, to the point that they say they are just animals and things like that, things that you wouldn't normally hear unless you dig and get these videos. So I see, I mean, Islam even doesn't call women animals. But if you are fundamentalist in any religion, you will find, because just the difference in time, because you get in something what was done in the Middle Ages or medieval time, and you apply it to now, so it will be very odd. But even if women were looked at in the past as animals, they are not now. So but when you are a fundamentalist, if you are a fundamentalist and you read into this script, you're going to believe in that, and then you're going to indoctrinate it. So
Yes.
I think I would have agreed with you that Judaism has, or the Jews have evolved or have become more civilized, westernized, if this war hadn't started, because this war showed me that no, they haven't actually moved. Well, Netanyahu said, talked about a prophecy in the Torah. He was talking about the prophecy in the Torah. So this is a head of a state that called itself secular, and he's talking about a prophecy in the Torah. So
well, he's looking at the next election, and he wants to butter up some of his potential voters, doesn't he? That's the trouble with politicians. And I speak as having been a minor one in the 20 years ago.
And I want to just add to what you said about imperialism or the drive for expansion. Maybe a good way to add to what you said and my statement that religion is the primary driver. I think you're right. Religion is at the next level or the next layer, but the two together of looking after oneself and one's own interest in an imperialistic or colonialist way is pair that with religion, and you possibly have the most toxic combination
absolutely
for human well-being. That's possible. I want to ask. I think John said that you are located in the UK. Am I right? I just want to make sure before I ask my next question.
John said what? Sorry.
Are you based in the UK?
I am. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So last Sunday in South Africa, in Sea Point in Cape Town, which is about an hour's drive from where I am, they were actually the police had to intervene with water cannons and rubber bullets because there were a group of Palestinian supporters and a group of Jewish or Israel supporters who clashed to such an extent that, as I say, there was force needed to separate them. So have you experienced, since the war broke out, have you experienced any Islamophobic threats against yourself? Because obviously you have an accent and people might, obviously they can't see just by looking at you what your opinions are. Have you experienced any form of discrimination where you are in the UK? I'm just curious to know.
I hadn't come out. This is my first time I'm coming out to the world as an atheist. I've never come out before. It's just when the war broke, I just had enough, and I just everything seems trivial with the amount of death that's happening. I just didn't care anymore. So I didn't experience any Islamophobic experiences at all. No.
Okay. Well,
and I didn't go out since the war. To be honest with you, I did not go out. I just isolated myself. I'm studying at the moment. I'm on a master's course, and I should go to uni, and I did not. So I didn't go to any demonstrations because you're not on any side. Because in the demonstrations, they'll be calling, they'll be chanting things that I don't believe in. So it's been super difficult for me.
Yes.
Because I don't believe that there was a mosque there before Islam, because the narrative is Prophet Muhammad was praying towards the mosque before God asked him to change direction towards the Mecca. I don't believe there was a mosque before Islam. Even the word mosque is just an Islamic word. There was no mosque before, and he might have been praying towards the temple, the temple, which probably which probably what was the Jews in Mecca were praying towards. So he just followed that. And then when there was no appeal to him amongst the Jews, he started turning into another direction. So and that mosque with the golden dome was built in maybe about 70-80 years after Prophet Muhammad died. So it was a different mosque that they're talking about. So that golden mosque is something different. And I don't believe that there was Moses was 3,000 years in Palestine before. I don't believe any of those narratives. So both one part says I've been here 3,000 years ago. Well, I don't think so. And the other, no, this is our land because we have a mosque there, and God. So it's really difficult. And I do think, and this is a message that I would like to give to the world. I really think there is a moral responsibility on the nations that have made an advance, because the Middle East has not made an advance, even though there are some rich countries. I think there is a moral responsibility on the politicians in rich countries to give a chance to those countries. Israel is a fact now. Israel is an occupier, in my opinion, but it's a fact now. We have to live. We have to coexist. And this is not it's not gonna carry on like this. We want our kids to live, the Jews and the Muslims. Why not establish a federal state like the United States, and then everyone will have everyone. And the Jews will have their own states, and the Muslims will have their own states, but the country will be for everyone. And then because two states, it's not going to work. It's going to happen again because these people have been bombed in Gaza. They will never forget that. They will. It's
all about
unprecedented.
Yeah, it's all about giving each other reason to continue.
Says that okay, we're going to have to do something about this. There is a responsibility for those countries who colonized the world. There's responsibility in the UK, in France, on America, to go and say, we want to sort this out. You're going to live in peace, because this is really bad.
So I find your coming out at this moment in time compelling. So would you say that it was the war that contributed to you deciding to come out as an atheist as well, or and as a humanist, I presume?
I've always told my friends here I didn't have a problem in the UK. The problem is being online. I've always avoided it because I don't want to break my family's heart. But it's not me who decided. It's John. Right? When John called me, he caught me off guard, and he said, "Would you?" I said, "Yes." And I didn't care anymore. I sort of now because there is no more heartbreaking than what we see on telly.
Yeah.
So.
John, has there been any humanist demonstrations in the UK? I don't know of any in South Africa, and it seems to me that the only thing this war has achieved is, besides all the massive human trauma, is also showing the lines that divide the entire world on the basis of nobody can be seen as just being pro humanity, because in conversations where I've said, listen, what Hamas did is completely wrong, and what Israel is doing now is also completely wrong. People have on pro-Palestinians and pro-Hamas people have been angry at me, and so have pro-Israeli people. So it seems that as in general, we just find it extremely hard as a species to not pick a side, to hold those two congruent ideas in our heads at the same time, that yes, I understand what these people are going through, but I also at the same time understand what these people are going through, and can't we just find a solution to stop the suffering? And in that regard, it has been very clear to me that Christianity definitely plays into the pro-Israel stance, because many Christians I know are praying for Israel, and there are those who can't wait for Armageddon to happen. But they just, Armageddon would be fine because that would be a quick wipeout of everything. But there won't be an Armageddon. It will just be a slow, torturous, violent spiral that is going to touch the lives of people in the UK. It has already, if not emotionally, then in other ways. And it will have a lasting effect on even somebody like me sitting at the far southern tip of Africa. And I've often said that our world is so interlinked that we have to acknowledge that the connections are there, whether we want them or not. And we have to work together for humanity. And in this case, well, kudos to you for coming out, Khaled. And I hope that there's no backlash. I
You've
hope
spotted.
that,
Yes, absolutely. We don't want you to come to harm, Khaled. But you've spotted, Tercia, you've spotted the real problem with religion. It's because it's divisive. And the reason it's divisive is because each side thinks they're right. And therefore they have a cause. They have to persuade the rest of us that they're right. And being in the middle and saying you're both messing things up is not enough of a cause to focus about and protest about. It's too wishy-washy. It's like being a referee in a football match. There's the two sides fighting it out. The referee is not really part of the combat.
Well, in my opinion, this needs to start on a high level, on the level of the U.S. president, really. But the problem is, the way I see it is that it's all personal interest. That the U.S. president will want to be re-elected, and if he takes a pro or an anti-Israeli side, he's not going to be re-elected, and it's all about people's interests. No one is actually looking at.
Yeah. Now that's the other problem. What you've spotted there is that it's almost impossible to separate a man's political strategy, procedure, policies for governance from his personal ambition.
I often tell to myself, if Yasser Arafat came back to life and becomes the president of the USA, he will be pro-Israel. It's just it's an establishment. It's an administration. It's not one person. It's an administration. So it is really difficult. But this is where it's going to start in the Middle East. I'm Middle Eastern. I'm talking about that issue as a Middle Eastern. We have been feeling the unfairness in treatment because America is always on the side of Israel. We have made a successful peace treaty with Israel. It was okay. So America, and that was with America. That's what was under the supervision of Jimmy Carter. America is able to do that, but by siding with Israel all the time, this is going to carry on. It's not because when people feel they are cornered, and I want peace. I don't want Hamas to win or Israel to win. I just want peace because this is crazy.
I'd like to point out that Jimmy Carter, for all the good that he did, never got re-elected.
No, he didn't. He didn't. Because of the problem in Iran. The embassy problem, the hostages in... But he did really well. Yeah.
I want to step away from the heavy politics and just ask something that has been sitting at the back of my mind as a language teacher. Because I've just realized, since speaking to Momus a couple of weeks ago and speaking to you tonight, that I have this idea about the language Arabic in my mind. But I mean, there's a number of Arabian countries. Do people in Egypt and people in Saudi Arabia, Arabs, speak the same language? And how do you feel about being called an Arab? Because is there still such a thing as an Arab or Arabic nations? And I'm also asking this because I've been brushing up on my history with the war breaking out and things like that. So it's been some years. So I'm getting myself clued up into the whole partitioning and even what happened between France and England, and how France and England, how they secretly went behind everybody's back, and all that, the Balfour Declaration, all that sordid history.
Yes.
And also, so just
Sordid,
would you mind
yes.
just I don't know if it's a lighter topic, but I'm curious to learn about that.
So it's a very good question. So there are disagreements between secular Egyptians, or secular Arabs. So we were not Arabs until the Arabs came with Islam and occupied Egypt and turned it into an Arabic country, and that's what they did in North Africa. So the very faithful ones to their own identity say, well, we're not Arabs. We don't like to be called Arabs. We are Egyptians. We are North Africans. We are. But we're not Arabs. Arabs come from the Arabic peninsula.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yes.
I don't have this sensitivity. I don't mind. I look Arabic. I look Arabic, I look Muslim, and I don't mind. I don't have this sensitivity. What is in the heart is in the heart, and it's not stigmatizing to be an Arabic person. Arabic people are wonderful. It's just happened that they have been indoctrinated into these religions. It's just like Israelis, they are wonderful. Everyone is wonderful, but they're just being indoctrinated into a religion that turned them into violence. And I love the Arabic culture. I love Arabic people. Even the extreme Muslims. As I said before, I do not. I can't dare attack them, because I know I feel very sorry for them, because the religion turned them into something that they are capable of being better.
Yes.
I understand where they're coming from. It is really difficult. It is really difficult.
I'm keeping an eye on the time, and I see the seconds ticking down. And I'm so sorry that I only started to talk about this whole thing of identity only now, because I don't think that's something that us Westerners talk about often enough. And you just made me realize that I come from, I'm South African, but South Africa is also like the concept of being Arabian or Arab. I think in South Africa, we also have a multi-dimensional culture, and we've had it forever. We're not like the UK, where you've been United Kingdom for at least 700 years, whereas it's in a place like South Africa and in Egypt and the Arabian Peninsula, it's also very it's more complex, it's more fluid. And I often have this discussion about what is an Afrikaner, because I'm Afrikaans speaking, and we were the perpetrators of apartheid. So I'm of Dutch, French, Huguenot stock. So now, if you ask me, what is an
We've all got skeletons in our cupboard, Some
of us just have it lying open. But this whole thing about
we may have been Great Britain for the last 700 years, but in my lifetime we've become multicultural, like you. Rainbow Nation.
Yes, that's true. But I don't think that you, for example, have the same. I don't want to say issues, but I often wonder, in some circles, I'm not an Afrikaner, because although I speak Afrikaans, and although I grew up in an Afrikaans school and an Afrikaans church, I was never conservative, and therefore in certain Afrikaner circles, I'm not an Afrikaner. But it's something that is always caused inner conflict with me, because what am I? Because yes, I am. I think of myself as an Afrikaner, but I don't always want to think of myself as an Afrikaner.
You're Scotsman.
And I think that's something that Khaled can identify with. Maybe not personally, but
if our genes went through analysis, you will find a lot of surprises. You might find a lot of different.
Well, I've often, when I was 17, I went to Greece as an au pair, and I was assumed to be Greek. Everybody assumed that I was Greek. When I learned to speak Greek, and I would speak Greek, and people say, "Oh, Greek," and they said, "No, only a little bit," and then they'd say, "Oh, where are you from?" And I'm South African. "Oh, South African Greek." No, Afrikaans. but interesting about the genes. And I know we're going over time, John, but I read a study where it was found that genetically, Arabs, Muslim Arabs, Palestinians, and Jews are genetically more similar than almost that Israeli Jews are genetically more similar to Palestinians than Israeli Jews and European Jews are. So the genetic links, it's basically the same, genetically it's the same people.
I
So
don't know how that could be the case. Just because.
well, if you, I will look up this. I will look up the information. But I read a study about how that genome. But now introducing that,
you're delving into my field. You're delving into my field here. So the understanding is that man originated in Africa. Homo sapiens originated in Africa, in the Rift Valley, the Great Rift Valley, and there's been a couple of exoduses out of there when we migrated as a species, and we went across land eastwards, and even at that time the sea level was lower, and it was quite easy to go down the Indonesian islands to Australia even. But then there was an ice age, and the population was decimated, and there was a second exodus from Africa. And meanwhile, back in Africa, the interbreeding, there were tribal populations which were very diverse from each other. So those who survived the ice age the population got reduced, maybe down to about 300,000. And so the European stroke, Middle Eastern are more similar than the huge variation that was present in the diverse tribes of Africa. And that's still true today.
I think immigration happened either in the Homo erectus or Homo heidelbergensis, because the Homo heidelbergensis evolved into Homo sapiens and Neanderthals, and Neanderthals were in Europe. Yes. So I think it was Homo heidelbergensis that.
What we need to do is get David Orenstein back. He's our tame anthropologist. He'll tell us more another day. And so this brings us to the end of the show. So thank you very much for contributing, both of you. You've been truly wonderful. Thank you very much, everybody who's been watching, including James Apperson, who's put comments up here for us.
Interbreeding. Such fun.
Yes. And thank you, future watchers, too, when it's becoming a podcast. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, John. Thank you to Tercia, and thanks for your wonderful watchers.
I've got an apology to make, because since I had to taxi drive my daughter to a party just before this show started, I haven't had a chance to make you an outro. Normally I have the names going up across the screen, and I can't play that for you because I was taken away to do daddy driving.
That's okay. That's important as well.
Yes, indeed. Yes. So I'm going to play this outro, which doesn't feature your name, Khaled. I'm sorry.
No
Say
problem.
bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.